What's going on, guys? What is going on? Freaking tired. Had a long, great day of talking Swift, seeing all kinds of amazing stuff here in San Jose. Been having a great time. Meeting a lot of you guys out here, which is amazing, and I'm loving it. And so today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about a couple of my thoughts on Swift UI and why I believe everybody needs to hear this before you start picking up SwiftUI. I think it's very important for the community to recognize the problem with Swift coming out, or SwiftUI coming out and being so damn sexy, essentially. So before I get started, I'm just going to say hi to everybody. What's going on, Toby? Puneet, what's going on? What's better than a morning coffee and some coding? Not going to be doing coding in this video. Maybe I might do a little bit of coding towards the end, but I'm not planning on doing coding at the moment. Mr. Guru says hi. What's going on, Mr. Guru? Always love the support, guys. Simon, hey, what's the deal? I'm about to talk about it. I need coffee. Flutter is in Xcode now. Well, that's another thing that people also need to recognize, and that's something I'm about to talk about. What's going on, Mayor? Glad you had fun, man. Thanks, Toby. Yeah, amazing, amazing. If you guys ever get the opportunity to figure out any possible way to come out to San Jose during a WWDC event, even if you don't go to WWDC, it's huge. Make sure you do it. Romesh, what's going on? And then Thomas, I can't believe you are taking the time to do this with so much going on in San Jose. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure to hang out with you guys and try to spread a little bit of light on these things. Toby says, hey, bro, I wrote a fun discussion on Medium, 3-minute read, and I would love it if you took a look at it. Would boost me so much. Toby, I would love to support you, but I'm boycotting Medium right now. So if you have it on your own personal website, I'll definitely check it out. Hi, Kilo. Nice to hear you this morning. Looks like a lot of people are on the other side of the world. It is pretty late. All right, so let's get into why I think that everybody needs to hear what I have to say before they start learning SwiftUI. So SwiftUI is the new hot, sexy thing, and it's going to be the way that we're going to be writing our Swift code in the future. Declarative UI is where we're going, and you know, what you're going to start seeing is you're going to start seeing content from all the content creators that do iOS tutorials, including myself. You're going to start seeing that we're putting up videos on SwiftUI. And this is fun. This is an amazing thing. It's a sexy thing. We all want to be in it. We all want to know the latest, greatest stuff, right? But what I need you guys to understand is that what we've been doing up until a week ago, or up until just a couple of days ago, 48 hours ago, is not invalid. It's not being completely outdated. What we're doing is still a very valid thing to do. Your current iOS apps are still very valid, and I don't want you to get into this trap of thinking that you need Swift UI in order to become an iOS developer. So that's my biggest fear with Swift UI being announced, and with the way that the community is going to flood the type of content that we get with the topic of Swift UI. I don't want beginners or aspiring developers to feel like Swift UI is something that they have to learn, or that is even a viable thing to learn at this point in time in order to get hired. Swift UI is only available on iOS 13, which means it technically can't run on any. It can't. Well, first of all, it can't be released into the App Store right now, right? So that's one thing, because iOS 13 is not in the App Store. quite yet until about the fall, like just like every year. Um, so you can't release apps with it. Also, SwiftUI is also still in beta. It's also it is very important that you understand that SwiftUI is in beta, and we may not even see it exit beta this year. Um, from the people that I've talked to about, from the people that I've talked to that have gotten to go to um, WWDC and speak with some of the the engineers in the labs and stuff like that. It seems like there are currently a lot of limitations on Swift UI, and there are just things that aren't completely worked out from my understanding. Now, I could be completely wrong in this, but I don't think that I am. Swift UI will be the future for iOS development. Yes. Um, but keep in mind that everything, all the apps that we've written in Swift up until Swift UI becomes a viable solution, you have to take into account that you will still need to learn and understand these skills. So I don't want you to think that some of these things like, like I was thinking, I was currently going through the process of learning MVVM or React Native or no, not React. I'm sorry, RX Swift or whatever it was that you were learning. Don't feel like it's time to just drop what you were doing and start heading over to Swift UI. This would not be a smart approach. Once again, going back to the fact that Swift UI is in beta, this means that things will most likely change. The way that we're implementing some of these things that we're doing, the tutorials that are being put out on the web right now, this stuff is all subject to change. There can be, and I'm not going to say a completely huge shift in the way that things are done, but technically there technically can, because it is in beta. Now, it's highly unlikely that you're in beta and there's going to be a huge shift in the way that things are done, but there are a lot of loose ends to be, closed up. So I just want to make sure that and if you are a content creator and you are happening if you're happening to watch this and you are a content creator, whether that's YouTube, podcasts, articles, whatever it is, whatever medium that you're choosing to release content, make sure that you're not giving the impression to our community, especially for the beginners and the aspirers. Make sure you're not giving that impression that Swift UI is the only way to go. That you have to know Swift UI to get a job. Um, the biggest thing that we need to promote are best practices to help get our aspiring and junior developers up to the next level. And same thing with intermediate and advanced developers. This is a little bit harder, but we're trying to get everybody up to the next level. And we want to make sure that we're keeping the information clear. So that's my biggest that's my biggest rant about the whole entire situation. I love the idea of Swift UI. I love it. And does it mean that Swift is going to probably start taking over some of these things and becoming a bigger and more relevant language? I personally think so, but this also doesn't give you this doesn't give you the right to go out and start bashing on people that are learning or know React Native, Flutter, Xamarin, or not really Xamarin, but mostly people are looking at React Native and Flutter, and you guys are kind of like hating on those communities right now, and I don't want you to be. What I'm trying to encourage is to not try to tear anybody down just because we got good news in our community, and you have to put down another developer in their community and tell them how whatever they're working with is outdated. Because keep in mind that even though you can write even though there's technologies that work in several different languages, there are several different languages that are still relevant today, guys. Like, think of it. Think about back-end development. How many different back-end languages can you really create a server in, just because your language can go and reach cross-platform doesn't mean that it is going to put everything to an end. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the fact that developers have preferences in the way that they write their code, and that you need to be respectful of that. So just that's the thing. Just be inspiring towards junior developers. Make sure that you're helping provide the correct information, because when new things like this come out, it can be extremely confusing to a beginner on where to start, and what is actually important. That's why I've been doing these videos on things like just learn MVC, right? Just you don't need to know other architecture patterns, or things that people really disagree with. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there needs to be a voice that aspiring and junior developers really need to hear, and to really help clarify what is important for a developer to know, and what's just kind of fun and sexy to play with, you know? So I know I'm keeping it really serious, and I know I'm ranting a lot, but I just really want to make sure that everybody is feeling accepted in our community and in other communities. Also, just remember that declarative UI doesn't necessarily mean that those other platforms are replaced. There seems to be this misconception that React Native is automatically replaced because Swift is using declarative UI, when declarative UI has nothing to do with cross-platform development. So just keep that in mind. Still got to know regular iOS development. We're still going to have to support our old legacy code that's written the way that we're writing code right now. And it still makes sense for you to go out there and still learn best practices in this code, because once again, it's only available on iOS 13. Most companies support N-1, which means that we have to wait at least a full year before that legacy code of just doing things the way that we're doing it right now in this moment. We have to wait a full year before that is even really considered to be phased out by most companies. And even then, there's companies that support N-2 for the release versions, and maybe even further than that, depending on the app and the company. So there's still a whole lot to learn with the way that we do write Swift code right now. Absolutely go out there and learn cool things in SwiftUI. Why not get a head start and a jump on some of this stuff? But just remember that SwiftUI doesn't exactly change everything. There's still a lot to be learned, and there's still a lot of growth that you can have writing code the same way that we write code today. So I'm not gonna rant anymore about that, but you guys are blowing up in the chat. So let me answer your questions or get to your comments. And overall, like I said, guys, I just want everybody to move up to the next level. I kill illness. Hear you. You think they would improve Xcode, right? They're doing big things every year, in my opinion. Like Xcode, no matter how small the features, Xcode is still getting better every year. So just give it time. I still do enjoy VS Code a little bit more. I have to get on the new Xcode and play with it in a more production setting, but yeah. Let's see, I wrote a small article about SwiftUI and Storyboard. I was asking for his review, really short 3-minute read. Yeah, if you could find out how to get me your website, because I'm not going on Medium. Is there a debounce already in SwiftUI, or do we have to extend view? Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm still in San Jose. I'm not home. I actually don't even get any time to learn Swift UI. The stuff that I did learn was from like 10 to about 12:30 last night, when I was doing like the live stream and stuff like that. This morning I woke up extra early to put together that tutorial that I did this morning. I just got back to my room right now and I started recording this live stream, so I haven't really looked into it any further, so I can't really answer that stuff. But I will be doing a lot of SwiftUI tutorials. There will be a course on it, and it will be free, so just be on the lookout for that. It's a platform. It's a platform for writers to share. Okay. Like Blogspot, however. Okay. Exactly. Also mentioning that it is a framework that is still in beta. Yes. Yes. So it is in beta, guys. Keep in mind that beta stuff, it means that it doesn't work. That's what beta means. It means that it's not polished and it doesn't work. Keep that in mind. Kilo Loco, exactly. Also mentioning that yeah, okay. I think that SwiftUI will become available. So, yeah, available solution when iOS 14 or 15 come up, because you cannot support 12 or even 11 with SwiftUI. So we have some time to play with this framework. Absolutely, OnePix. So OnePix is kind of saying what I'm trying to say in a much cleaner manner. You have to wait until iOS 14 and 15 roll out essentially before we're really going to be able to implement SwiftUI into production level apps and only write in SwiftUI. Because until then, you're going to need to support, more likely than not, you're going to need to support iOS 12, and it's not going to work on iOS 12. And I don't know if you can have logic that will allow you to do both, but regardless, you would still have to do it the way that we normally do it just for iOS 12. Which design pattern would Apple recommend for SwiftUI? So SwiftUI is going to follow what you guys can do right now if you want to learn a little bit about design patterns and state management for something like this, is if you wanted to look into something right now, you're going to have to actually do it in a different framework, something like React Native or Flutter to see it implemented really well. Or you could also do, I actually haven't looked into this, but there should be some type of framework or library that's out on GitHub that will be called Redux for Swift, something like that, Swift Redux or Swiftly Redux, or they'll probably name it something like that. We're going to be following something that's going to be very similar to a Redux pattern, similar to a RX Swift pattern from my understanding. We're going to be using, it looks like we're going to be using Combine framework. I was going to put together a tutorial for that, but I couldn't figure it out myself without watching a little bit more information on, SwiftUI. When I figure it out, I'll put out a Swift Combine, because I believe you need Swift Combine, or no, I keep calling it Swift. I think you're going to need Combine framework in order to do networking in an efficient manner for using SwiftUI. So as soon as I figure that out, you guys will get like your basic table view app with populated data that came from the internet, right? So that will be coming. Kiloloco, for example, Objective-C is still in use in some projects and is still valuable for some people. Exactly, Toby. So that's a perfect argument. Objective-C is still around, guys, and Swift has been out for 5 years, right? It looks like Apple is phasing out Objective-C slowly. This was the first step to phasing out Objective-C, in my personal opinion. But yes, Objective-C is still around. There still are apps that are entirely written in Objective-C. There's still a lot of apps that use Objective-C code. So just keep that in mind, that Swift itself came out 5 years ago, and Objective-C is still not obsolete. So don't think that the way that we've been writing Swift code is obsolete. It could take more than 5 years before SwiftUI really catches on. I mean, not likely, but there's still that possibility. Which design pattern? Already saw that. My wild guess would be MVVM. everything's a little bit different, guys. The design patterns are a little bit different. It's not, there's going to be this huge paradigm shift, and that's another thing that I kind of wanted to say, that it's it's important that we're trying to learn from the right sources. Um, I am not going to be the right source to be learning the like I won't be the first one to put out stuff on this. I will not be the first content creator to put content out on some of these best practices, because I haven't explored to that depth of how state management works with declarative UI. I have some experience with it, but I don't have that much experience with it to be one of the first ones that puts it out. As soon as I understand it, you guys will get a video though. Which is, let's see, I don't know, let's see. Okay, if I just keep to storyboards and don't use declarative, is that gonna impact app speed or anything? If they have less code, that means they wrote much of the boilerplate code themselves. So that's that's a difficult question, because the thing is that I don't fully know what they've done with Swift. I don't know how they've constructed it, how they've constructed Swift UI. What my experience is for a similar situation is with Dart, the language Dart. So with Dart language, they are actually structuring the language to write out the UI itself. So it's just a really weird situation, and I haven't done enough research to really comment on that and give you much better information and actually provide you value. So I'm gonna have to pass on that question, Rohit. SwiftUI doesn't support iOS 12, which means that I wouldn't use SwiftUI before iOS 14 comes out. Yeah, so that is a legitimate statement to say. I would guess that you're probably going to use it a little bit before that, but yeah, that's a legitimate thing to say. Delete the message if you mind it, man. I am sorry. I just explained to the guy. Medium was and shared. Okay. Hey Kyle, thanks for vids this morning. Does SwiftUI completely remove the need for constraints? Can we use both UIKit and SwiftUI in tandem? I can't wait to move to SwiftUI. All right, so let's break down this giant question. So does SwiftUI completely remove the need for constraints? So from my understanding of where they're going with this, with declarative UI, there is no longer the concept of constraints. And this is kind of beneficial for optimizing for multiple screen sizes, especially since they are making it so that we can write apps on iOS, iPadOS, and macOS, tvOS, watchOS, and all this other stuff, right? So the idea of constraints is no longer valid. This will take some time. I can complain about this stupid topic of storyboards versus programmatically, because it's the same thing. The second part was, can we use both UIKit and SwiftKit in tandem? Depends on what you mean by that. You can use UIKit and SwiftUI in the same project. I don't believe that you'll be able to use it in the same file. You might not get a build error, but just the way that both of these things are operating differently, and that they're actually not they're technically not even related in the slightest. So you wouldn't be able to use a label inside of a list. If you wouldn't be able to make a list, right, and put UI labels in there. That wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to, you may not be able to even use alerts. I don't know yet. I haven't tried it and I haven't learned yet, but I would guess that no, you wouldn't be able to use UI kit and SwiftUI in tandem to that extent. But in the same project, yes, you will be. I can't wait to move to SwiftUI. It's absolutely fine for you to move over to SwiftUI and start learning it. But like I said, just keep in mind that this is a very new technology. It's still in beta, and that there is still a whole lot of value in learning how to do things the way that we've been doing them up to this point. Hi, Anton says hi. Is it possible to create a real-world large app with Flutter, with many custom UI and backend API requests? The answer is yes. I'm not going to get into Flutter right now, guys. Redux, why not just use a structure array for the state? So the thing is, like, you could use a structure array for state, but what you're going to see is more reactive patterns emerge. I believe you're going to start seeing more reactive patterns emerge because dependency injection doesn't seem to be a core concept with declarative UI, and they're kind of following this. They're kind of following this approach of, well, one, using structs, which means that you don't have inheritance, but what you would actually be doing is you'd be using structs, combining them together. So you have these objects that you're combining together, you're composing, and this is called composition. So you're, instead of making a custom UI button by subclassing UI button, what you would do is instead you would create a text object that might have a rounded border and has a gesture recognizer that's attached to it to detect tapping, and that's how you would make your custom button, if that makes sense. So instead of inheritance, we're probably going to see things move towards composition. You still write apps in Carbon and C and CPP. Yep, that's correct. Absolutely. Things aren't going to go away. Just keep that in mind. If you have the or is carbon, what died with Catalina? I honestly don't even know what carbon is, or maybe I do and I'm just having a brain fart. I'm super tired. I'm not sure. Let's see. PUBG.Swift, what's going on? What do you think about React Native and Flutter, which is good? So if you already know JavaScript, then learn React Native. If you're up to something that's new, up and coming, and you just want to play with the latest hotness, Flutter's a good option. They're still missing a lot of APIs, but yeah, they're both good. Let's see. Is SwiftUI the answer to Flutter React Native? No. So keep in mind that Flutter and React Native fix the problem of cross-platform development. SwiftUI doesn't change the problem of writing your code once and having it run on Android. Is it going to be cross-platform for Android too? That's up to Google. Apple has no control over that because Google has Kotlin for native, Flutter for cross-platform. Google has Flutter for native, no, you're right. Yeah, so they have Kotlin for native, they have Java for native, and Flutter for cross-platform. Yeah, but SwiftUI has nothing to do with this. So that's another thing that I want you guys to make sure that you're understanding, is that SwiftUI has nothing to do with Flutter and React Native and the problem that these cross-platform apps, because at the end of the day, this doesn't mean that that SwiftUI automatically runs on Android. There is Swift on Android, and I don't want to promote this site just because there is a paywall for support, and I want to see more of a community solution. But if you go to scade.io, that's SCADE.io, you'll actually see Swift on Android. Somebody's done it, which means that it is possible to do. Now we just need somebody to do it. We just need our community to build it and make sure that it's completely open source. All right, and now Apple has Swift UI kit for native, Swift UI for cross-platform, simple. No, that's not how that works. Swift UI is for cross-platform in regards to their own app, to their own platforms, not for cross-platform on Android. An external tool API to convert native iOS apps to native Android, just like Flutter. What do you think? Yes, so I can get behind that. I do believe that you're right in saying that Swift UI is going to encourage somebody to do kind of like a compile down to Kotlin type of situation for Swift. Yes, I do believe in that. RIP auto layout. So it's funny to say that, but just remember, guys, that it's important that you understand that auto layout's not going anywhere, at least not for 2 years, right? So just keep that in mind. It's not going anywhere for at least 2 years. Right now, it's on bed rest. It's like in a coma. I would rather say SwiftUI is the counterpart from Apple for functional reactive programming. In essence, it will be replacing RxSwift and MVC for people that did not use RxSwift. Yes, I agree with that pretty well. Yeah. Why would you have your Xcode being your template for an app? You guys are talking to each other, and why weren't you making a time machine backup and update to Catalina so when there's an issue you can go to the exact last version of Mojave? Because this is my production machine, and when you are working with a production machine, you need to be very careful with what you do, whether you have time machine or not. And also, I haven't been in my room outside of sleeping, really. Even Kotlin is cross-platform. Kotlin, yeah, Kotlin is cross-platform. Kotlin's using something called multi-platform or something like that. Kotlin native. I don't know which one, but yeah, they're using something like that. All right, guys. So that's gonna be it for tonight. I just wanted to give you guys my 2 cents. I want to make sure that I just want to make sure that you guys are essentially aware that SwiftUI is cool, but it's not going to change how we operate next week. We're still writing code the same way that we were writing code last week. Okay? We're just going to be learning something cool in the meantime. And we're going to get ready and we're going to start learning this new framework that's going to allow us to do declarative UI and really take advantage of Swift's cool features. So yeah, learn Swift UI, but remember that there is still a lot to be learned from the content that's out there. The Ray Wenderlich courses are still great. Paul Hudson stuff is still great. Whenever you see a tutorial that's done in something that's not Swift UI, it's still going to be great. Just keep that in mind. All right. Let's see, we got a couple other questions on Android. I'm happy about that fact. I just don't want to really get sucked in and then they change their pricing model. Then again, does Kotlin really compile to ASM? Not sure what Kotlin compiles to. I thought it compiled to Java, but I don't know. Thanks for the insights. Have fun at the conference. I am in POC mode right now. When it comes to production, I'll encourage my devs to start learning the new framework. See, that's exactly what I don't want to happen. You can learn it. Encourage the devs to learn it if they want to do something fun, but there are a lot of other things that they can learn in the meantime, which would be better for them while Swift UI comes out of beta. Hey man, I made a new partition to run 10.15 and I am trying to learn Swift UI. I just want to say thank you for all of your good tutorials. Absolutely. Be on the lookout. There will definitely be more Swift UI tutorials. just remember that this isn't the end all be all. We still have a lot of cool stuff to learn. Yeah, that's your take. Yeah. Well, thanks again for chiming in, Thorson. I always appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of the night. Appreciate your time. Go out there, code passionately.